What is up, party people? Welcome back. Welcome to 2018, the first episode back in the new year. And for your trouble and your patience, I'm going to make you feel some pain. Let's do it. That's right, folks. Welcome back to the first episode of the Art Lessons Podcast in 2018. I'm your host, Dave Connery. And on this show, if you're new, here is I try to express real-time ideas on what it takes to live a creative life and build a creative business and do creative things. But we're here to talk about something a little tougher today. Not just the basics of what to do around your art and how to feel and but more importantly, what are you struggling with? And are you struggling enough? Are you feeling the pain? Are you putting yourself into the toughest situations you possibly can for the goals that you want to achieve? That is a big question today, and it's a deep one. And it's brought to you by the man, the myth, I don't know, maybe a legend. His name is Mark Manson, and he is actually one of my most favorite authors, current favorite authors. He wrote a book called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, which I highly recommend. You should go check it out. I will link to it in the description, but don't have to, but you should. And to clarify about the book, just for a moment, is that it's not about not giving a fuck about anything. This isn't a nihilist society where we just don't give a damn about anybody or anything. No, we care. We should care, but we should care about things that matter to us, things that are important to us, things that are going to help us along, and not give a fuck about the things that don't do any of those things. That is the core essence of the book, but that is not what we're talking about today. However, I will say this. When I read the book and absorbed the content, which it's all pretty rudimentary stuff, but there's a lot of lessons in there that can help maybe get your mind past some of the things that you have blockades on. But when I read the book, I started thinking about all the things that I was caring about at that moment, at that time. And a lot of it was political-based stuff, socio-political-based stuff, all these things that are happening in the world that are very important things, but I was taking them so seriously that they were affecting my life. And affecting it in a negative way because I spent so much time focusing on that I wasn't focusing on the important stuff like the art, the family, the business, the things that matter to me most. So yes, the book has a lot of really important points that help me get past that part of my life and help me get into a mindset of more productivity, things that matter more and things that don't matter so much need to get lost. But that is, again, like I said, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the new idea, the new thing that Mark is expressing in this post that I read on Pocket, or I think it was Quartz is what it was actually, but I read it through an aggregate. It doesn't matter where I read it. What matters is that I did read it and that I'm sharing it. The title of Mark's article is, you probably know to ask yourself, what do I want? Here's a way better question. I don't know, not the best title in the world, but not bad because it obviously got me reading. And the TLDR on the article is this, that everybody wants a happy life, they want a good life, they want a fruitful life, they want to be comfortable, they want to be good, they want all the good things. And if he were to ask you, or if I were to ask you, what do you want out of life? And you're going to say, I want to be happy, I want to have family and friends, I want to do my art, I want to be all these great things, I want to do all this stuff. And that's great, and you should have that stuff, and you should understand that stuff. But what you're missing out when you answer that question or get asked that question or ask that question of others is you're missing out the work. You're missing out on all the things that go along with getting that happiness. You may say, I want to live as a full-time artist, but do you truly understand how much work, how much energy, how much pain, how much struggle goes along with doing that? It's possible you don't. And so Mark's question to you, the better question is, what kind of pain are you willing to deal with? What kind of struggle are you willing to put up with? Everybody in the world, well, almost everybody in the world has aspirations. Maybe they want a tremendous career, but most of them are not willing to put forth the energy and effort to get that tremendous career. Everybody wants to have a great relationship, whether it's with a spouse or friends or family, but do they put the energy and time into making that a thing? Do they put in the work to visit their friends, their family? Do they put in the work to have a great relationship with their wife or their husband? Do they put in the work to have the close relationship that they're looking for? Manson contends that if we want to get what we want out of life, it's not going to be based on the good feelings that we want, but rather the bad feelings we are able to put up with to make the good feelings happen. You want to be a great artist? You got to do the appropriate amount of work. You want a great body? You got to do the appropriate amount of great work. You want a great relationship? You got to do the appropriate amount of great work. He goes on to say that if you are wanting to get somewhere in life and you keep wanting that thing month after month and year after year and not getting any further along, then what you're actually potentially doing is not wanting, but fantasizing, and that you are more in love with the idea of wanting than actually achieving. That's supremely heavy. It hit home in a couple of places, and it's reinvigorated my mindset about some of the things that I want. Do I want them bad enough to really want to achieve them? Or do I need to put in more effort in those things in order to actually get them? And the answer is yes to both, depending on what it is I'm talking about myself, but we have to make that determination. And one of the other things that Mark doesn't actually go deep into in this article is that we obviously don't know all the work that is needed to make something happen until we start doing it. But I can tell you that if you are going through your daily life and trying to get through the struggle of the things that you're doing and you're not getting any further along, well, then it's quite possible that you're not doing enough of the work. You're not struggling through the pain more. You need to push through in order to get to that next level. And if you're not getting to that next level and you're not doing that next thing, if you're not putting in more hours, if you're not spending more time on your craft, if you're not trying to build more relationships better, if you're not trying to build better relationships more, if you're not doing the work that's necessary, then you're not going to get there. Obvious. But are you sure about the level of work that you need to do to get there? Again, the only way you're going to be able to figure that out is to, number one, maybe do a little bit of research, but number two, do the work. And if what you're doing isn't getting you further, do more. The question really comes down to sacrifice and how much sacrifice you are willing to give for the thing that you want. And sometimes the things that you want may be at odds with each other. Maybe I want to have a great relationship with my son, but I also want to build a tremendous art career. And sometimes those things are going to intersect, and sometimes those are going to butt right up against each other. I may need to be here in the studio doing the work, recording the videos, recording the podcast, and my son may be in there saying, I want to hang out with my father. So those things are going to run up against each other once in a while, and sometimes they're going to intersect well. And I have to show the balance in which one that I want more. Which one do I need more at any given moment? Which one is more important to me today? Which one is more important to me this week, this month, this year to achieve the thing that I ultimately want? Do I have to let the little dude suffer a little bit in order to get more paint on a canvas? Do I have to spend more time in front of the computer and interact with other human beings so that I can get more canvas onto the walls of other human beings? Do I have to spend more time with my son in order to make sure he understands that to live a fruitful life, you have to put some work in, but also spend time with the people that you care about at the same time suffering by not getting enough painting done? It's a big convoluted mess, I know, but these are the questions that we need to ask ourselves in order to advance, in order to get further along, in order to actually get to the things that we want to achieve. We need to find out where our pain point is and whether or not we can suffer more pain for the thing that we actually want. One of the stories that Manson talks about in the article is he talks about how he always wanted to be a rock star. He wanted to stand up on stage, and he wanted to be a great musician, and he wanted all the fame and glory that went along with that. And he actually went to school and studied his craft, and he got into a band, and he did all this stuff, but then he never really felt the urge to push for the next thing. He always like trying to find a different way to dance around the idea, dance around the work, and never really pushed forth the full effort. And at a certain point, he realized that he didn't really want that thing. He just wanted to want it. He liked the idea of being up on that stage, but he didn't actually feel deeply about putting the work in to get there. I can relate to that a lot because I've always had this fantasy of having my own gallery where I feature other artists, an actual physical building where I put other artists in and have a building and share that work and be more of a stand-up guy in the art world. And I think that that's entirely possible, but maybe in a different framework, maybe in a different lens. Being the art gallery, being the art dealer, being all those things may not necessarily be what I really want because I am never willing to put forth the actual effort to make that happen. And the idea of making it happen kind of gives me, a little bit of anxiety of like, God, because that's so much work. And yeah, it's like a rich man's hobby kind of thing. And those are the things I say in my head, and I talk myself out of it all the time because I don't feel like I actually am passionate enough to make it happen. It's a grandiose idea. I think every artist or every art fan, art collector would love to have their own gallery, but to actually make it happen and put forth the actual effort, well, that's a different story. I'm not willing to suffer that pain and struggle. So perhaps it will always live in my mind as a fantasy. That's fine with me. Now that I know that's where it's supposed to be, I'm okay with that. It can live up there. It's just not going to be something that I act on. I would more likely act on putting myself here in front of you guys because I think that I can have a more positive effect on the art world in this space because I'm driven to do this thing, driven to make this grow. I'm driven to make my artwork so that it resonates with other artists that know that I'm not only am I sitting here trying to tell you my life lessons on how I think an art business should happen, but I'm also actually doing art and putting it out into the world so that you know I'm not just some shill, because there are too many of those people too. So now this is where you get to ask yourself some very tough questions. You get to look at all those big goals that you have, those big dreams, the things that you actually want, and now you got to sit there and ask, am I willing to go through the struggle to get them? Am I willing to put myself through the pain necessary to get me to those places? Or am I just wanting the wanting? And nobody's going to care what your answer is to any of these questions except you. You're the only person that matters. If you really truly want it, if you really feel deep down in your soul that you need to get to that place, then it's time to start being real about the work that it takes to get there. Stop kidding yourself about just being able to post up occasionally on Instagram and share your stuff and say, hey, once in a while in a couple of groups and just, push yourself in your Facebook page and hopefully everybody's going to get. You got to do more and you got to be okay with that. And you got to be okay with once more isn't enough to get you to that next goal. The more will continually grow to be more. And at a certain point, you're going to be like, okay, I think I've got enough more. Where I'm at with this is where I'm okay with now, because anything harder is going to compromise the other things in my life. And if you're not willing to go that effort on that particular thing you're doing, then maybe it's time to rethink that thing and not necessarily give up on the fantasy, because fantasies are great, but maybe find the thing that really drives you, that really pushes you down the road, that really makes you want to feel the pain and the struggle in order to get to it. Find that, and then you'll be able to flourish and grow and be great at the thing that you really, truly want, instead of kidding yourself about the things that are just fantasies. Very importantly, I want to make sure that this is not just like some motivational speech for me to say, hey, man, get to work, do the thing, struggle, hustle, all that stuff. I do that a lot, but I want to make sure that it's not just that. It's not no pain, no gain. In fact, he actually says this right here. He says in the article, he says, this is not a call for willpower or grit. This is not admonishment of no pain, no gain. This is the most simple and basic component of life. Our struggles determine our successes. So choose your struggles wisely, my friend. Okay, question of the day. Today's question comes from Stephanie, and she says, what do you do when you're not feeling very creative? Like if you hit a creative slump, and how do you battle the fear that you've lost it? Well, that's intense. When I feel like I've hit a non-creative space, personally, this is one deal. There are a lot of different ways to regain creativity, and lots of different people have different techniques about this. But my personal thing that I do, or at least a few of the things that I do, is number one, I get out of the studio. I get out of the studio and I go do something completely unrelated to my work. So I'm not going to be painting and pushing myself into a creative space. I'm going to try and absorb something completely unrelated in order to kind of reactivate the subconscious creative things that pop, the synapses, those things, gonna reinvigorate the creative synapses in the back of my brain so that I can get back into the studio and feel great about things. And so maybe I'll go for a walk or go to the gym, or I'll just, go do something like read a book or something, because sometimes even an unrelated book will spark a little bit of creative genius in you just by a simple thought. This particular episode, I was actually struggling to figure out, what am I going to talk about today? I was actually feeling anxiety over the whole thing, and then I read that article. I completely passively read that article. I just saw it, and I was like, oh, this sounds interesting. I'll read it. And it ended up being a thing that inspired me to get here and get up on my soapbox and talk to you guys. Yeah, that's one way. That's obvious, but that's one way. Another thing that I like to do is I dabble into a different area. So when I was doing my 100-day challenge a while back, where I was drawing 100 different ladies onto these small little cards and showing them every single day. At a certain point, I was like, God, I just feel like I'm not pushing it. I'm just drawing women, and I wanted to push it more creatively. And so what I would do is I would dabble into the other areas of my creative space to figure out how I could incorporate them into the work I was doing. So instead of just drawing a woman, I started to incorporate collage. And when collage wasn't doing it for me, then I would throw in some spray paint and some handwritten lettering, and I would do other things that I pulled from in other places. If I was, say, a photographer, wink, wink, if I was a photographer and trying to pull in different things from different places creatively, I would maybe go shoot pictures of something else, like animals, maybe a cat perhaps, or maybe I would go shoot downtown into this, the urban area. Like that's what I like to do. I go to the more urban area of my town and take pictures in there, or just look at different things that inspire me, like signage, typography. Those things inspire me, and how do I get those into the work that I want to do? Or I just listen to podcasts and ebooks and about things that may spark some sort of interest in me, that may at least spark a fire within me. When I was doing things that were very politically oriented, when I was doing more work that wasn't politically inspired, it was because I was listening to different podcasts and reading different stories about that stuff. And it was great. It obviously spurred about a side of my creative self that I don't necessarily I don't know if I want to go back to that space, but at the time, I was inspired to create these things because of the stuff that I was taking in. Taking that lesson and applying it to now I'm taking in stuff that's going to get me further along. I'm reading books, listening to podcasts, reading stories from people that I am inspired by, and hopefully that gets me into the space that I want to create. Something I read from Mark Manson may end up here on my canvas. Not literally, figuratively. It's just a matter of putting myself in a space that is unlike the space that I'm trying to work in, just to get myself thinking, looking, acting a little different in order to kind of reset my creative clock. And as I'm thinking about this, one of the other ways that I like to do this, or one of the other ways I like to re-kick off my creativity, is to have good conversations with other creative friends. Talk to people, go face to face with other human beings and have good conversation. Having a good conversation with a friend this week allowed me to jump into a headspace that I hadn't been into in a long time, in a good way. It doesn't really matter what or who, but I had a great conversation with a really good friend about their lives, about their career, about what they're doing, and it inspired me to want to do more within my own stuff, and inspired me to head down a direction that I hadn't thought of or even considered for a while. Again, doesn't really matter what or who. What matters is that the conversation help me get there. So ultimately, I guess it really comes down to exposure. Get yourself out of the bubble that you're in and get yourself into new bubbles. Get yourself out of the bubble and go outside, go walk, go exercise, go do something, go hang out with friends. That type of, go have a great dinner with the people you haven't talked to in a while that might be able to inspire you to do things. Have good conversation. I'm redundant. Just go do things that you're not already doing, and maybe that'll help. Okay, artist of the day. So I'm breaking my rule today about Artist of the Day by sharing somebody who is already blown up, already huge, but made an impact on me just this week, and so I wanted to share this person with you. Normally, I would share people who haven't blown up yet because I want to expose new people to up-and-coming artists. People that need a boost because they need a boost. And I want to help those people out. But I want to give a big shout out and thank you to Shantell Martin. She is an English artist based in New York City and tremendous human being. I say that not because I've actually met her, and my interactions with her have been extremely limited. But here is this young, successful, thriving artist who is doing great work, but also trying to put forth an effort to encourage you and I to do our great work too, and to really get out there. She's not hiding back her process. She's not hiding back the things that she needs to do. She's not hiding anything about her life. She's trying to share it. She has a YouTube channel you should go check out. I'll link to that in the description. She's on Instagram. She's on Twitter. And what happened to cause me to want to bring attention to Shantell, even though she doesn't need it, she's already big enough. If you don't know who she is, you should go, climb out of that rock and find out, because she's great. But anyway, so I bought a pin. I bought a little ceramic metal, those little pins that are very popular right now, that she made. She made these limited edition pins, and I saw an opportunity and I bought one. It wasn't much, $20, $30, I don't remember. It was small, But it was a pin, and it was from Shantell Martin. I'm a big fan, so I bought it. And then I got the package, and it wasn't just the pin. It was a pin. There was a couple of stickers. I figured she would do stickers. She always does stickers, but she also included a really cool pen and, something similar to what she might use. And I was like stoked. I was like, yes. And I took a picture of it and posted it on my Instagram, and that shared it to Twitter and to Facebook. And then I shared it on my Instagram stories. And she interacted with me in every single space. She saw it on Twitter and liked it. She saw it on Instagram and liked it. She saw it on my stories and liked it. And I said, Shantell, you really inspire me, and thank you. And she said, no, thank you. And as simple as that was, I thought that was incredibly gracious of her. She doesn't owe me anything. We had our exchange. Money for goods. Right? I gave her money. She gave me a pin. That was the end of our relationship, potentially. And I continued to share, of course, because I felt great about what she did. She went above and beyond, so I felt like I needed to go above and beyond by sharing. She didn't need to respond to me and say, thumbs up. Stoked she did. But then when I said, hey, appreciate everything you're doing, and she says, no, thank you, that tiny little gesture, that tiny little thing made me feel so great about this artist who I already appreciated and already admired. It made me feel that much better about her. I am more a champion of her now than I ever was before because she said 3 words. No, thank you. So folks, the lesson here isn't go follow Shantell Martin. She's a great artist, because you should do that because she's inspiring and great. The lesson here is that when we're doing our thing, going through our regular lives and trying to grow, and if we do grow, we get bigger, and we lose track of the fact that we got there based on other people's support, and we don't follow through with those people, then it's possible that we may lose them. They may fall behind, not because they say, well, they didn't say thank you to me, but rather because we just don't hit in the spots that we should with them. We don't hit in their heartstrings. We don't hit in their brain the way that we should because we weren't doing the work that went above and beyond. If we don't go above and beyond, we may not maintain our resonance with those people. We may end up being just secondary, tertiary thoughts for them. And they just happen to, every time they see us, like, oh yeah, I remember this artist. I bought something from it. That's great. Good job. But if we put forth an extra effort, even if it's just a tiny one like saying thank you, then that solidifies with those people that we have more concern over their interests than just our own. Ultimately, what I'm trying to say is don't ignore your messages, don't ignore your comments, don't ignore people that give you big props in references and links and hashtags. Don't give up on that stuff because it's going to be important for the rest of our lives, I believe, and it's a good practice to get into now. All right, folks, that's it. I'm getting off the soapbox, kicking it aside. Time to get back to work. This canvas isn't going to paint itself. Folks, if you like this, if you enjoyed it, make sure you like it up, subscribe to the channel on YouTube, subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. If you haven't done any of those things, if it's not iTunes, maybe it's Stitcher, maybe it's Spotify, maybe it's SoundCloud, wherever. If you haven't done that, do that, because that helps me help get to the face of other people that haven't heard me yet. I had a new fan just this week named Penelope just reach out to me and say she's a follower and a fan, and I just wanted to say, hey, Penelope, thank you. I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate you listening, and I hope that you are willing to like and subscribe and share with all your friends so that maybe we can bring some more people to encourage them to do great things with their creative stuff. Okay, that's it. I'm out. Folks, remember, be good today, be better tomorrow. See ya.